All right, hey, Mike, that was Deshaun Watson on Friday. It was after we went off the air. The grand jury, as you can see there at the headline, declined to indict Watson and many allegations of sexual misconduct. I believe the grand jury hearing on Friday, they heard from nine women accusing Deshaun Watson of various things. 10 women were there. They didn't hear the 10th, but 9 women spoke, and the grand jury decided that there was no criminal path to be had here. Now, it's a huge hurdle. It's a huge victory for Deshaun Watson. If we use that language, I don't mean to be trivial. If you take it that way, I apologize for my language. But on his journey, this was a big step for him. But it's not over. It's not over. There's still a civil component. So when we talk about the truth, and Deshaun Watson said there are two sides to every story, and we wanted to have our day, and we wanted people to hear our side. People did hear their side with the grand jury backdrop, but there will also be civil cases, and so the civil story might be different. But this allows Deshaun, at least, this allows him to say, okay, could probably play in the NFL in 2022. A team can be less hesitant about acquiring me. I can see a little bit more light than I saw yesterday. But this is a complicated story, and this is the last thing I'll say on it before I pass it to you. I was thinking about this earlier today. I think every topic under the sun is fodder, or every topic under the sun can be discussed. Sports talk radio, sports discussion shows, the sports pages. Every topic is eligible for that. But it's not appropriate for each of those topics to be discussed daily. So, in other words, Deshaun Watson, day one, sure. Deshaun Watson, 30 days in a row, it's not really built for what we do, because what we're looking for is some movement. We're looking for, okay, what's next? And there's a process here. And I think a lot of us get in here, if you're pro Deshaun Watson, you want the process to be faster. If you're anti-Deshaun Watson, you want the process to be faster. But it doesn't work that way. Even now, somebody is declaring victory prematurely.
Yeah. A lot. There's a lot of declarations
of victory. And some people might have their heads in their hands right now, shaking their heads saying, oh, man, it's defeat. That's premature, too.
Let me tell you what's scary. What's scary is how, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but how much we think alike. I'm gonna come back to that point about it not being conducive to doing it every day, because that actually dovetails into something I want to say, and something I've been wanting to say to you for a while, but I sat on it because it just wasn't the right time to bring it up when you said it before. But I'll come back to it in a second. Real quick, housekeeping though, okay? The District Attorney's Office in Harris County, Texas, presented evidence to the 12-person grand jury for 6 hours on Friday related to 9 of the 10 criminal complaints, okay? The grand jury rejected all 9 cases, but as part of the proceedings, grand jurors were shown footage from the videotaped interviews the complainants had given to police. Several of the women who filed criminal complaints also sat in a room together, ready to provide testimony, but only one was called in front of the grand jury. This according to the New York Times, who got it from 2 people with direct knowledge of the proceedings. Also, Deshaun, he invoked a 5th in his civil deposition, I beg your pardon. And then tomorrow, he will continue with civil deposition. So the process is ongoing. But I just wanted to kind of make sure we got those facts in line. Let me start here, because just because you mentioned not doing it every day, 30 days in a row. And we've had quite a few conversations ever since this story first started a year ago. You said something, and you were relaying a request or a suggestion or constructive criticism, if I recall correctly, from a friend or a colleague. And that friend or colleague said, every time you talk about Deshaun Watson, remind people what he's accused of. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. Remind people of why we're kind of in a holding pattern here. If you're going to talk about them like, hey, which teams are going to change quarterbacks, could you just kind of mention it so people don't think that you don't know that there's this big thing hanging out there over us?
So, there's that. I appreciated that constructive criticism, but it also made me uncomfortable, and I'll tell you why. With all due respect, I don't want to assume anything about who said it, but it got my wheels turning. So allow me to use that person as an example of what I'm talking about, if I may.
Go ahead, good, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And maybe it's because we're in this bubble, and maybe because we do this every day. And you and I talk all the time about not assuming that people have seen all our conversations. But the reason that suggestion rubbed me the wrong way is I believe it comes from a place of assumed guilt. And the reason I feel like it comes from a place of assumed guilt is I know on this show, but no other show that I've ever seen discuss Deshaun Watson, did anybody gloss over his legal troubles. Now, we may not have spent 10, 15, 20 minutes unpacking them and summarizing them all over again in case you've been under a rock or on another planet, but nobody ever talked about it as though, he was still just sitting out because he didn't want to play for the Texans anymore. Like everybody that I saw talk about it accounted for why his playing status was in limbo. So that struck me as somebody who really wanted people to be reminded of what he was accused of, which is very, very serious. But I know for me and for you, I'll speak for you as well, because it's the only show you and I do together, we never trivialized the gravity of these accusations. Now, that brings me to Friday, because I saw a continuation of this on Friday. On Friday, just from what I gathered, the temperature that I was able to take, it seemed like whatever opinion you had arrived at in this court of public opinion, you were still there on Friday. Because the people who always felt like this was a brother being taken down by the man and by the system, this was a money grab, that these women were lying, those people were celebrating in the streets because Deshaun had been vindicated, because Deshaun had been, his guilt, he had been exonerated. The people who took the allegations more seriously and were probably, just based on the sheer number, more inclined to believe that something happened here, even if it's not criminal, pointed out the very accurate fact that not being charged is not the same as you didn't do anything wrong. He's not criminally guilty. He may end up being civilly liable. He may have done something, but it did not rise to the level of probable cause where the grand jury and the prosecutor felt comfortable bringing charges against him. Those people were quick to point that out. My point is, Michael, if you're following me, is that very few people are actually willing to neutrally follow the process and let the facts play out, especially, to your point, in our business where we're doing this every day. This situation in sexual assault, to me, is one of the few set of circumstances where neutrality is uncomfortable. Let me say that again. Sexual assault is one of the few circumstances where neutrality is actually uncomfortable. Usually it's easy to stay neutral. Usually it's easy to not pick a side. In the case of Deshaun Watson and the sexual assault allegations in general, I think it's easier to say, oh, this is a plot, this is a conspiracy, or 22 people can't be lying, he must have done something. I think it's much harder to do what you and I'm not trying to sit up here breaking my arm, patting both of us on the back, but I know what you and I tried to do from the beginning, and I think it's necessary in conversations about sexual assault. You and I tried to walk a fine line. You and I tried to maintain a balancing act, because it's two incongruent things that you're trying to marry. One is innocent until proven guilty in our justice system. So we have to presume until proved in a court of law otherwise that Deshaun Watson is innocent. We have to do that. Otherwise, this system doesn't work. Whether or not it works for everybody, That's another conversation altogether.
Yeah. Another day on that.
Play along.
Yeah, right.
Just play along.
Right.
But on the other hand, we have to believe women. We have to respect their testimonies. We have to respect the seriousness of these allegations. Otherwise, women will never get justice. It's why women so infrequently get justice. It's because their allegations aren't taken seriously. It's because they're put on trial. It's because they're victim blamed. So how do you balance those two things, saying he's innocent, but these women are credible? That's almost an impossible position to be in, but it's a necessary position to put ourselves in. It's why I say that neutrality is uncomfortable. That's the job that we have, not just as commentators, but as a society. We have to find a way to marry those two things. We have to be able to believe that Deshaun Watson is innocent until proven guilty, but at the same token, take these allegations seriously. On Friday, he was not criminally charged, and that's the end. It doesn't mean you get to sit up here and celebrate that, oh, see, free Deshaun, he's innocent. But it also doesn't mean that you get up here and get to say, oh, he just got off because he's rich and famous. You can't do it either way. We have to follow the process, and the process said he's not criminally charged. So now teams are lining up because the criminal charge is out the way, as you said. The civil cases, however that plays out, they can live with, and we'll see what the NFL does. Does all that make sense? That took me a while because I've been sitting on that for a while. When you said that a while back, I think we had Charles Robinson on. I think you might remember. I said, "Oh, I got a thought on that, but I'll save it for another day." So that's
I remember.
I've been on that for a while.
I remember
because I just felt like you want us to. Do you want us to say it because you feel like it needs to be said, that people need to be reminded over and over and over again what he's accused of having done? I'm like, we know, we've said it. Anybody that's watching this show knows.
Yeah.
And we still acknowledge it. We may not acknowledge it in great depth.
I'll say, in her defense, I would say a couple things are going on with her. I don't think she assumed guilt. I think the number one thing is, and she said this to me, she said, from one woman's perspective. She didn't say from a woman's perspective. She said from one woman's perspective. From my perspective. Yes. Like it can be demoralizing. It can be demoralizing where you have these conversations and you just kind of gloss over. Now, she wasn't talking about, this show in particular, but a lot of shows where that happens. Hey, man, all right, so where's Tom Brady going? Where's Russell Wilson going? How about Deshaun Watson? As if they're all just free to go wherever they want and they all have parallel situations, and they don't. And that was her point. Wait a minute. Tom Brady, okay, it's just a matter of compensation or or money, whatever it is. Same thing with Russell Wilson. But with Deshaun Watson, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Can we mention this? And the other thing is,
I just never saw anybody drop that ball, Michael. And I also would never sit there and try to mansplain to her.
I have.
You have? Okay.
I have. And that's the other part.
Because
you just said
it's clearly complicated for a different reason.
And you just
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mansplaining.
The mansplain part? Yeah.
I'm so tired of having these conversations. And now in this case, we get to do something about it. These conversations where it's all men talking about this situation, the very complicated, potentially devastating circumstances involving women. And it's all men just commenting on something that needs a woman's voice and a woman's perspective. Absolutely. And I think she was just fed up with it. And I'm fed up with it too. I understand her position.
Okay. So yes, need more women. However, I will say this. It's no different when we talk about matters of race.
Yes.
Black people talking about it ain't going to change nothing. More white people have to take the lead on this conversation. I would amend your observation by simply saying men need to be more comfortable talking about these matters, and we need to be better at talking about these matters. To your friend's point.
Better.
We need, and if she's here to help us, I receive it. I'm just telling you how I received it, knowing how much we have tried to make sure we did not trivialize or gloss over the seriousness of these allegations.
Now, there's one thing I know. I know about being a man, and I feel confident saying this, and a blanket statement, and I think it covers the majority. Most men, most grown men, are comfortable talking about everything, even if they shouldn't be comfortable talking about everything. Most men will talk about it, even if we're not necessarily informed about it. Oh, well, wait a minute. That's not this. So men, it's not the problem of being comfortable talking about it. It's your other point of being better. We need to be better and more informed and more enlightened in talking about these things.
Or in some cases, to your point, just listen and not mansplain. And so, you know what I mean? Like, but in order for misogyny to be dismantled, it's gonna take men. If women were gonna dismantle misogyny, it'd have been dismantled already.
Hey, thanks for watching Brother from Another on YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, and be sure to watch us 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Peacock. Appreciate you.